schools is that we want to make certain that the information is out there for anyone who would like to access the conversation today. I want to begin by introducing myself. My name is Megan Bennett. I'm the superintendent here in Region 12. I am joined tonight by Principal Emily Judd, who really needs no introduction. She is the queen of Washington Primary.
I would say that.
I will say that when we're going to talk about the generalized, what was the planning that went into Region 12 schools, Mrs. Judd took that planning and then really worked it through all of the details of Washington Primary. She looked at every logistics. She looked at how the students were going to develop. She looked at the education that was happening. And so that document that she sent forward is really that should be your guidepost on how you're going to operate this year. So she is certainly here to ask those logistics questions and the details that are specific around Washington Primary School. We're also joined tonight by our board chairman, Gregory Cava, and also board member John Boniuno. So we are glad that they are here. They get to hear our conversations. To add on any questions that you have of the board, they are here with us as well. This is designed to be interrupted. So I'm going to share some information, but I'm going to say any questions you have, please feel free to type it into the chat, or you're welcome to just ask the question. This is really the opportunity for you to have any outstanding questions answered before we start school on Tuesday. And we are excited to start school on Tuesday. So without any further ado, I am going to get us started. And I'm going to do just the high level. Many of you received the reopening plan as well as all of the plans for every school. It is our intention, it is our desire to always be transparent. So we want to make certain that all of our families know that our administrative team worked hand in hand. So that way we don't have different expectations in Bridgewater than we do here in Washington than we would have in Roxbury. So it is very much collectively how we are going to operate. So we want to make certain that people can also reference if they want to see what is occurring at other schools. But I think what you will find is that Principal Judd worked very closely with Principal Coella, and the outcome is just a very thorough plan to keep your children safe and to push education forward. So I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room first, because it's always easier to start with that first expectation, which is usually people want to know what is happening with masking. We are going to be universally masked as we start school this year. We are currently following the governor's executive order regarding masking, which means that regardless of vaccination status, everyone who comes inside of our buildings will need to be masked. I very much emphasize the words inside of our building for the very reason that when students are outdoors, they will be allowed to remove their masks, which means that recess, they will have the ability to be without masks, running around, making certain that they're getting fresh air. But we are saying that when they are indoors, they will be masked. And we will certainly make certain that our students are getting those mask breaks during the day. And I know that Mrs. Judd has talked with staff and is working with how mask breaks work. We want to make certain that mask breaks become part of the day as much as possible, rather than feeling like it's an interruption to the educational process. So we look for those opportunities. For us, it's something with the mask break in which we don't want to have anything that becomes something separate than the day. So the more we work it into just the routines and practices, students also have the ability to anticipate when that is going to happen. Ms. Judd, do you want to say anything else about the masking?
No, I think the teachers are fully prepared to offer mask breaks throughout the day. Most of them do take outdoor mask breaks, and kind of in conjunction maybe with a read aloud or an assignment or their snack break. So they're trying to use the time wisely for things that they would normally do, in the classroom when masks were not present. So they have a plan for that. During sort of inclement weather, we do have an indoor mask plan, so they have a location that they can go to and have that, mask break as well. So I think we're pretty set up nicely for that to take place in a seamless way this year.
Excellent. And I thank you for all the work and effort that our staff takes to make this part of their routine. And we recognize our students' comfort is also very important as they're learning. If there aren't any questions, I don't see anything in the chat box right now. I'm going to continue and I'm going to start talking a little bit about our social distancing. All right. Well, this year, social distancing will look a little bit different. Based on the information that was gathered through our experience learning in the classroom environments, last year we were at 6 feet distance between all of our students. Based on the data collected, and we did monitor for students that were quarantined. We looked for what were spread rates, and this was done not just in Region 12. This was done across Connecticut and across the nation. And what they found by the CDC's guidelines, we were able to capture some space back. So we can move from 6 feet to 3 feet when they are in the classroom. I talked to staff today and I said, there's a big difference between 6 feet and 3 feet. It's the difference between shouting and having a regular conversation. And so we will be able to introduce some more opportunities for our students to have some of the interaction. Granted, we are going to make certain everybody stays in space, so that way they know that they feel protected as they're exchanging some ideas and thoughts in their learning. If you notice, I also very specifically said our students are 3 feet apart. And I also said that that was within the classroom. When we go to other areas in which there is high movement and it is indoors, we will expand the social distancing based on the activity that is occurring. One of the examples that I give is that if singing is involved, we do want our lessons to be outdoors as much as possible. So that way we can really take the opportunity so students can sing in the fresh air without the masks. However, if it is indoors, the space increases to 12 feet. And so I know that Ms. Judd chose different areas and locations on how those instructions are going to happen, knowing that we have those different guidelines that happen the moment we introduce music, and especially because we know that at this time, the vaccination is not available to our students under 12 at this time. So we still continue to take those precautions. So music will look the way it did last year, with the exception that we are bringing back our instrumental lessons. But we're going to do this very cautiously. And so we will start with some percussion lessons. And the beauty of having instruments in which it is not produced, it is not wind production, our students will still learn the value of note reading, of keeping rhythm, beats. And those are things in which, when we are able to finally introduce some of those instruments that I'm certain our students have been waiting for, they will at least have an understanding of the music reading. They will have an understanding of how to keep the beat. So there's absolute value in getting lessons now, so that way they can parlay it when they finally get their instrument of choice. Other things that we are looking to do is that we do want PE class outdoors as much as possible. As Mrs. Judd said, even just reading a book, getting those students outside where they don't have to have that mask requirement. And we can also make certain that we're watching for distancing. But when fresh air is involved, we have some more liberties that come with that. So we find educational opportunities where we can. But we also recognize that health and safety are going to be paramount above all else. So that still remains our guiding principle. I can also share that right now we have designed our classrooms for that 3 feet of space, and Mrs. Judd has used our desks and has figured out ways in order to have spacing where we can have groups, but they're spaced apart. But I'm also very excited because come December, we will have brand new furniture at Washington Primary School. So there's a big hope. And if I could have all of my druthers and everything the way I want it to happen. Ideally, it would be that now we have brand new furniture, that the desks actually come together to make a round table and there's more collaboration. So in my dream world, it's all going to happen at the same time. We know that that doesn't always happen because COVID tends to dash some of those hopes. However, we are very excited because the furniture that we have purchased for the elementary schools does have the flexibility that it can be individualized, but it can also come together as a group. So we do have some exciting things that are on the horizon too. Any questions regarding social distancing? All right, I'm going to move us on to quarantine time. This year, we do not have the parent option for remote learning, meaning that in the past, families could make the decision whether they wanted to access learning virtually. This year, we are not having that option for parents to make that choice. We have found that students who get in-person learning have better achievement. We've talked about this as staffs. There is a power in having our students in person in learning with the teacher in the classroom. With that said, we also recognize that if a student comes into contact with someone who is COVID positive, we will need to move to a quarantine situation. Last year, we held to the 14-day quarantine requirement. This year, based on the data that was provided to us, knowing that for a 10-day quarantine, you have covered 95% of the infections will develop in that time. So we felt safe working with our Department of Health as well as guidance from the CDC that our quarantine time will be 10 days. Part of that decision was not just about the 95% where we know that's where we would see symptoms developing, but it's also recognizing that quarantine is very disruptive to the educational process. So we were trying to weigh out what are the risks to what are the benefits. Now, when a student does return after the 10-day quarantine, we will be monitoring for that distance and we will be very vigilant about that mask wearing because we still know there's that 5% chance that something, may come and has been dormant. However, it is one that it is of low risk. So we felt very confident moving to a 10-day quarantine. We are also permitting this year that if a family decides they would like to shorten that 10-day quarantine to the 7-day quarantine, they would need to produce a negative PCR test. That test would need to occur after the 5th day of exposure. So without the test, it is a 10-day quarantine period. If a student comes back and has a negative PCR test after the 5th day of contact, they may return after 7 days. I see we have a question, so I'm going to go to the chat box. The question is, are you going to be socially distanced on the playground and rotate where they can be? Ms. Chev, would you mind talking about this? Because this is something that I know you.
Yes. So each class is likely to be outside with one other class. So 2 classes will be on the playground at the same time. They are permitted this year to intermingle with one another. They are permitted to share materials. Before recess and after recess, there will be hand sanitizing or hand washing. And we will encourage social distancing outside. They're going to be unmasked, but to the extent possible. Most of the kids usually are running around, but if we see like a small group sort of hovering together, we'll just kind of encourage them to have their spacing like we did last year. But yeah, we're excited about that change. I think the kids are going to be looking forward to being able to play with other classmates from other students from other classes. Are there questions to that? Any follow-up?
Thank you, Mrs. Judd. And Sarah, thank you for the question. That is a very good question. And we want to make certain that as you know, and as we're changing the dynamics of how things occur, that this is with open eyes and open mind. And I am also going to say that if as a parent, you decide you want your child to remain masked outdoors, we ask that you just simply communicate that with your child's teacher. So, that remains an option, but we also know that there is permission to be without masks outdoors. So we did talk about recess and we did talk about PE class because I know those are some exciting changes. And as Mrs. Judd said, we will be allowing for more of the playground equipment and use, but that would also come with additional hand washing before and after. So we will be taking measures to make certain that we are reducing spread. Everything that we do in all of our choices, we continuing to look at layered mitigation strategies. So you may hear and you may see some of the permissions look different at Chippewa when you have vaccinated students that you're working with. We look at whether they're masks, whether they're vaccinated, what is the social distancing that is involved. All of those things we evaluate regularly to figure out if we've created a safe learning environment for our students. Other things that we want to share is the arrival and dismissal. Students who are coming in on the bus, they will be one person per seat. Students will be required to have their masks on throughout the bus ride, and we will have the windows cracked for ventilation. We recognize that fresh air is king, and we will continue to promote that and have that fresh air going through the buses, which also means I'm going to say, please make certain that your children are dressed in layers so that way if it gets too hot, they can take off a jacket, or if they need to have that on. We may be getting a little bit chilly at times as we want to make certain that our students have access to that proper ventilation at all times. We will not be taking temperatures at the doors. Last year, we took the temperatures and we did this screening so that way, it was part of our mitigation strategy. We were checking for temperatures so we could keep students who were not feeling well from coming into the school. I can also say in a very sheepish way that I think sometime around January, we got some temperature recordings of 83.2. We knew that they were not accurate all of the time, but what that time that was meaningful was we were able to have a conversation and assess every child walking into our door, which meant we weren't just asking them about how they felt physically, we were also checking on them emotionally. We were able to have walks in hallways with children who just need an extra second to come in. It really gave us an opportunity to assess the whole child. So this year, we'll still be greeting the students. We just won't have a thermometer in our hand, but we will certainly be monitoring also for the emotional state of each and every one of our students. Ms. Judd, do you want to say anything about the arrival and dismissal?
No, everything is going to remain the same except for the temperature check. So I think the parent drop off will be one car at a time. They'll proceed to the gym and go to the classroom that way, and our buses will be in our circle. So it just worked really beautifully last year. So I think the arrival will stay the same, as well as pickup. The only piece that we are working in this year that probably will go through some transformation is the reach pickup, because we're trying to use our bus circle after the buses leave. So we'll see how that goes. My sense is that after a week or two of doing that, we'll probably need to make some adjustments, because the little ones are trickier because, the parent needs to get out of the car, put them in, strap them in. All the other cars will need to wait, even if they're already finished. So it might get a little trickier, but we'll work through that. And I think our reach parents will be, really supportive of those changes if they need to happen.
And thank you. And we will be having reach transportation. We recognize that for Roxbury and Bridgewater, there is the common pickup drop-off spot, which are the libraries. It is our hope that as our parents pick up students from the libraries, that they pop on into the library. It's a great time to pick out some books as well. But we do want to make certain that we are not asking our families from Bridgewater and Roxbury to drive all the way out to Washington in order to get reach transportation. our rich children will have the same situation in which one per seat, and to make certain that they are safely put on the buses. I do want to share with our families that lunches this year, again, we will have the same option we did last year, where if you would like to participate in our lunch program, you would need to order in advance online using our NutriSlice app. All of the meals are prepared at Chippewa and they are delivered to our elementary schools. I will tell you, we always deliver a couple of extra in case something happens, but I can also tell you that students really want their first choice. So if it is possible, please make certain that you're going online, you're ordering. If you have any problem with that ordering process, please let us know. I am also very happy to share that these lunches remain free again this year to all of our families. So please feel free to partake in that, to make certain you order. I know that the students were very excited to get their little packets, and they did a great job in transitioning to what is a school lunch. Anything you want to share about that, Ms. Judd?
Yes, so the communication went home today with the instruction how to order the lunches online. I will want you to just pay close attention to the milk. There is a milk combo situation where it's not a full meal. It's kind of like a shortened meal. So if you want your child to have milk, but you don't want the rest of those items that come with the milk, then you will have to purchase milk separately. But if you buy the milk with a little bit of combo, which are a few snacks, that is for free. And so I would encourage you perhaps to do the snack, the milk with the snacks, because those then can be used, for a later afternoon snack. If they get hungry, they can take it home, or they can bring it in and use it for a morning snack. So just be mindful that if you only want milk, you will have to purchase that.
Thank you. That's a very good clarification, and it is one, and we will work with you too. If there are any errors, these are where, especially early on, we will send extra. It is our goal to make certain that no child goes hungry. So we will continue to work to make certain that we achieve that goal each and every day. As we talk about, everything we're talking about tonight is about keeping your child safe and healthy, and that also comes down to their nutrition. So one thing I did not mention, and I'm going to go backwards for one quick moment, was about the bus situation. Students are assigned a bus for regular transportation, which also means that we cannot have students riding an unassigned bus to a friend's house. So we are not able to make those exceptions where if there's a play date, students cannot go on a bus they are not assigned to in order to get to that play date. So we do ask our families to coordinate that transportation because our buses will not be able to be used for that. So I just want to make certain that as we're planning ahead, that we say that out loud. So as I'm going to just continue to move forward, unless there's any questions. Okay, you will notice that between last year and this year, if you looked at our reopening plan last year, as we started the 2020 school year versus as we start the 2021 school year, our phases look very different. Last year, when we were coming into a lot of uncertainty and not knowing how a school year was going to pan out, we were really just hoping we were going to make it through the entire school year. We had 3 phases. Phase 1 was where all students were 6 feet apart. We utilized block scheduling at Chippewa. Ms. Judd had created the schedule for what was going to happen if there was remote learning, if there was hybrid learning, and we had that articulated out. So there was phase 1, phase 2 was the hybrid, and phase 3 was remote learning. This year, we have redefined our phases because it is our goal. It is what we believe we can do, is we believe we will be 180 days, well, 183 days because we're region 12, but we will have 183 days of in-person learning. So phase 1 this year looks different because it shifts us from the 6 feet to the 3 feet of social distance within our classrooms. Additionally, it shifts our schedules back to the schedules we were used to. So no longer will we have the specials by each semester and each month. Now we will return back to that rotating specials. So students who love PE, they will have PE at least once a week, and they will have art at least once a week. So we are able to resume that rotation for our specials at the elementary school. So all of that happens in phase 1. Phase 2 would be that we would shift back to what we saw last year. We would shift back to 6 feet of distance. We would shift back to shifting our specials teachers assigned to each school for that period of time. And the question then becomes, what triggers us to move from phase 1 to phase 2? And really what it comes down to is we're going to watch for our local health conditions, as well as any potential spread within our schools. If we start to see and we start to have some data that says that 3 feet, we are seeing more students exposed to COVID and now fall under quarantine requirements, and we see more spread happening within that quarantine for kids who have been quarantined, we would move and shift to phase 2, which we demonstrated last year could be done safely all year long. So we are anticipating fully in-person school. We have designed for that. We have designed for both our ability to get closer and control those variables, but also know if we need to revert back to that safe learning environment we had last year, we will do that. For us, we're trying to capture back some of those learning opportunities, but we want to make certain that we control for those variables slowly. This is not about going too far too fast. This is about making certain that as we take each step moving forward, our children are safe as we're progressing through this pandemic. So we do ask families, as I mentioned, we are not going to be taking temperatures at the school. We ask families, please make certain that you're checking for your child's wellness at home. We ask that you do not send your child to school sick. When in doubt, I would rather have them stay home and get well. We do ask that families report any absences to our nurses so we can monitor for potential COVID symptoms. We can certainly give you some counsel on whether or not medical support may be needed. This is where our communication becomes incredibly helpful. I also want to say to families, we recognize that not every time a child is sick is it COVID. We know that COVID symptoms are also symptoms that are cold-like, that are flu-like, but it is one in which when you report it to the nurse, we can also take a look and examine what else we have for knowns within the school. Do we have a known sickness in that classroom? Do we have a potential exposure that we didn't think they fell within that quarantine zone, but maybe they were closer together for 15 minutes or more? So that communication also helps us as we guide you through what could be potential sickness causes. So working together will remain key. I will still put out all of those notifications when we have a known case of COVID. We do not identify the student by name or the staff member by name, but we certainly let families know where the positive case came from, whether it was Washington primary, whether it was at Chippewa. And the reason we do this is because we want to make certain we have transparency. As a parent, you want to know what is happening in your child's school. You want to feel safe. And one of the ways that we invite that safety and giving you that sense of choice is to know that we are providing you with the information that we have in a timely and accurate manner. So any questions regarding attendance, sicknesses, or our phases? I'll tell you, Ms. Judd, I think they just have a lot of faith. They know that you can do it, and we're looking forward to doing it again. So this year, our focus is really on improving our instruction. We are very proud of what we were able to accomplish in some very challenging times last year. We were at the height of the pandemic, and our teachers were able to capture learning opportunities. This year, we really want to make certain that we are taking those opportunities and stepping it up a notch. We know that a lot of times when we have to do a lot of the delivery as the educators, it's not as meaningful as letting our students explore that understanding and concept. So we will be making certain that there are some collaborative opportunities safely. We want to have some projects that our students can do safely. And we want to make certain that they are able to explore the information that is provided to them, whether we're using manipulatives to try that out. We want to capture those opportunities. And again, and I can't say this word enough, safely. So we will be returning to our green cleaning practices. I know last year there was a lot of sanitization that was happening at all times during the day because we really wanted to make certain we had a sterile environment as much as possible. But sometimes when you over sterilize an environment, you can also kill some of the good germs that we want to have that are helpful. We will be doing regular cleanings of the classroom. We will be utilizing our green clean products, and we are going to continue to monitor for that safe and clean environment for your students, but we certainly want to let you know. One of the questions that we were asked was that will our students have their own supplies and keep things separate from each other? Yes, we will still individualize materials. We still want to make certain that students have their own set of pencils, own set of crayons. We are trying to make certain that those are hard things to also clean each and every day. So them having their own supplies will also help keep us safe and healthy. That was a really good question, so thank you. The other thing I want to share is, in as much as we want to just immediately invite our volunteers and visitors in because they really are the heart and soul of our schools, and we love having people come in to help and see what we get to experience each and every day with the students. It is not yet the time to invite our volunteers in. We're going to continue to look for those opportunities when we can start having volunteers come in to support our classes. But I'm not anticipating that much before November. And even then, we would be looking at what are the local health conditions and if it is appropriate to lift some of those restrictions that we've put in. I can also share that we had a lot of parents who enjoyed parent-teacher conferences virtually. And we had some parents who really were frustrated by the experience. So we will be providing the option for families, whether or not it's a parent-teacher conference or if it's a PPT or if it's a student study meeting that we hold, if they would prefer to do it virtually or in person. If it is in person, we would require all participants to be masked. But again, we do want to work within our family's comfort, and we do recognize there is a need to have that opportunity for families because we are planning for their child's education. I need to also share, because I'm now taking this to our open house, we are not able to have in-person open house right now. The reason we can't do that is because we can't get both parents in and have social distancing within our classrooms. So we felt as an administrative team, it was much more important that families had the opportunity to hear the teacher, to have that conversation and interaction than it was to physically be in that classroom. So we will be having virtual open houses. With that said, we are very excited to say we will have a safe ice cream social this year. We will not be scooping the ice creams. It will be handed as a Dixie cup, or having the opportunity to introduce some of those events that have been near and dear, but those will be done outdoors. They will be done in a way in which we are not spreading materials and ingredients. And again, we want to promote the events where we are coming together as a community, as a school community, But again, we can't go too far too fast. And so we are trying to design it for as safe as we can. Emily, anything you want to share?
I just want to share that the PTO this year might be doing a different activity later in September. But the first one, which is typically our ice cream social, is just going to be a meet and greet opportunity. And we're going to be doing that at 3:30, I believe it's September 1st, the second day of school, and it will be out near the pavilion on the public play area. And there are safety measures that are being put in place so that everyone can socialize in a safe way and kind of have that normalcy back. But later on, there might be a combination of a special snack and a movie situation. So they're still in the planning stages.
I see I jumped too far too fast. This is what we don't do. But no, and I do appreciate the teachers being willing to come out and make certain that they personalize as much as possible. And I think that is the goal this year, is to humanize, to make certain that we are having those interactions where available. So that brings me to the end of my list. Mrs. Judd, is there's anything that I have missed, but I'm going to start monitoring our chat box or listening for questions that people may have.
No, I think, Megan, you covered everything. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them as well.
Okay. John or Greg, anything you'd like to share?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered the whole area.
Yeah, very well thought out, very well planned. Have to see how it goes. Hopefully on September 30th, things will change. You know my opinion on that.
Appreciate it. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming out this evening. I'm also going to say, I'm going to hit stop recording at this time, but I am going to linger around. So if there's any questions that you have that you want to stay back for, we will continue to be on this call. We want to make certain that you feel comfortable having your child start school on Tuesday.